and it's a back and forth, okay, between two developers. No JavaScript frameworks were created during the writing of this article. Okay. Hey, I got this new web project, but to be honest, I haven't coded much web in a few years and I've heard the landscape changed a bit. You're the most up to date web dev around here, right? Second person. The actual term is front end engineer, but yeah, I'm the right guy. I do web in 2016, visualizations, music players, flying drones that play football, you name it. I just came back from JSConf and ReactConf, so I know the latest technologies to create web apps. Cool. I need to create a web page that displays the latest activity from the users. So I just need to get the data from the REST endpoint and display it in some sort of filterable table and update it if anything changes in the server. I was thinking maybe using jQuery to fetch and display the data. Oh my God, no one uses jQuery anymore. You should try learning React. It's 2016. Oh, okay. What's React? It's a super cool library made by some guys at Facebook. It really brings control and performance to your application by allowing you to handle any view changes very easily. Oh, that sounds neat. Can I use React to display data from the server? Yes, but first you need to add React and React DOM as a library in your web page. Wait, why two libraries? Okay, so one is the actual library, and the second one is for manipulating the DOM, which now you can describe in JSX. JSX, what is JSX? JSX is just a JavaScript syntax extension that looks pretty much like XML. It's kind of another way to describe the DOM. Think of it as a better HTML. What's wrong with HTML? It's 2016. No one codes HTML directly anymore. Right. Anyway, if I add these two libraries, then I can use React? Not quite. You need to add Babel. Anybody remember Babel? And then you're able to use React. Another library? What's Babel? Oh, Babel is a transpiler that allows you to target specific versions of JavaScript while you code in any version of JavaScript. You don't have to include Babel to use React.js, but unless you do, you're stuck with using ES5. And let's be real, it's 2016. You should be coding in ES 2016 plus like the rest of the cool kids too. ES5? ES 2016? I'm getting lost here. What's ES5 and ES 2016 plus? ES5 stands for ECMAScript 5. It's the edition that has the most people target since it has been implemented by most browsers nowadays. ECMAScript? Yeah, you know, the scripting standard JavaScript was based on in 1999 after its initial release in 1995. Back then, when JavaScript was named LiveScript and only ran in the Netscape Navigator. That was very messy back then, but thankfully, now things are very clear and we have like 7 editions of this implementation. 7 editions, for real. And ES5 and ES 2016 are the 5th and 7th edition, respectively. Wait, what happened to the 6th? Oh, you mean ES6? Yeah, I mean, each edition is a superset of the previous one, so if you're using ES 2016 Plus, you're using all of the features of the previous versions. Okay, and why use 2016 Plus over ES6 then? Well, you could use ES6, but to use cool features like async and await, you need to use 2016 Plus. Otherwise, you're stuck with ES6 generators with coroutines to block asynchronous calls for a proper control flow. I have no idea what you just said, and all these names are confusing. Look, I'm just loading a bunch of data from a server. I used to be able to just include jQuery from a CDN and just get the data with AJAX calls. Why can't I just do that? It's 2016, man. No one uses jQuery anymore. It ends up in a bunch of spaghetti code. Everyone knows that. Right. So my alternative is to load 3 libraries to fetch data and display an HTML table. Well, you include those 3 libraries, but you bundle them up with a module manager to load only one file. I see. And what's a module manager? The definition depends on the environment, but in the web, we usually mean anything that supports AMD or CommonJS modules. Okay. And AMD and CommonJS are definitions. These are ways to describe how multiple JavaScript libraries and classes should interact. Exports and requires. You can write multiple JavaScript files defining the AMD or CommonJS API, and you can use something like Browserify to bundle them up. Okay, that makes sense, I think. What's Browserify? It's a tool that allows you to bundle CommonJS described dependencies to files that can be run in the browser. It was created because most people publish those dependencies in the NPM registry. What's an NPM registry? It's a very big public repository where smart people put code and dependencies as modules. Like a CDN? No, not really. It's more like a centralized database where anyone can publish and download libraries so you can use them locally for development and then upload them to a CDN if you want to. Oh, like Bower. Yeah, but it's 2016 now. No one uses Bower anymore. Oh, I see. So I need to download the libraries from NPM then. Yeah, so for instance, if you want to use React, you download the React module and import it into your code. You can do that for almost every popular JavaScript library. Oh, like Angular. Angular is 2015, man. But yeah, Angular would be there. Alongside Vue or RxJS or other cool 2016 libraries. You want to learn about those? Let's just stick with React. I'm already learning too many things. If I need to use React, I fetch it from this NPM and then use this Browserify thing? Yes. That seems really complicated to grab a bunch of dependencies and tie them together. It is. That's why you use a task manager like Grunt or Gulp or Broccoli to automate running Browserify. Heck, you can even use Mimosa. Grunt? Gulp? Broccoli? Mimosa? What the heck are we talking about now? Task managers, bro. But they're not cool anymore. We used them in like 2015. Then we used Makefiles, but now we wrap everything with Webpack. Wait, Makefiles? I thought that was mostly on C or C++ projects. Yeah, but apparently in the web, we love making things complicated and then going back to the basics. We do that every year, so just wait for it. We're going to do assembly in the web in a year or two. Okay, you mentioned something called Webpack. It's another module manager for the browser while being kind of a task runner as well. It's like a better version of Browserify. Okay, why is it better? Well, maybe not better. It's just more opinionated on how your dependencies should be tied. Webpack allows you to use different module managers, and not only CommonJS ones. So, for instance, native ES6 supported modules. Okay, I'm extremely confused by this whole CommonJS ES6 thing. Everyone is, bro, but you shouldn't care anymore with System.js. Jesus Christ, was another noun.js. Okay, what is System.js? Well, unlike Browserify and Webpack 1.x, System.js is a dynamic module loader that allows you to tie multiple modules and multiple files instead of bundling them in one big file. Wait, I thought we wanted to build our libraries in one big file and load that. Yes, but because HTTP2 is coming now, multiple HTTP requests are actually better. Wait, can't we just add the 3 original libraries for React? No, not really. I mean, like, you could add them as external scripts from a CDN, but you would still need to include Babel then. Okay, and that's bad? Yes, you would be including the entire Babel core. It wouldn't be efficient on production. On production, you need to perform a series of pre-tasks to get your project ready that make the ritual to summon Satan look like a boiled eggs recipe. You need to minify assets, uglify them, inline CSS above the fold, defer scripts, as well as, hang on, I got it. So if you wouldn't include the libraries directly in a CDN, how would you do it? I would transpile it from TypeScript using a Webpack plus System.js plus Babel combo. TypeScript. I thought we were coding in JavaScript. TypeScript is JavaScript, bro. Or better put, a superset of JavaScript. More specifically, JavaScript on version ES6. You know, the 6th version we talked about before. I thought ES 2016 Plus was already a superset of ES6. Why do we need this thing called TypeScript? Oh, because it allows us to use JavaScript as a typed language, bro, and reduce runtime errors, bro. It's 2016. You should be adding some types to your JavaScript code, bro. And TypeScript obviously does that. Flow as well, although it only checks for typing, while TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript which needs to be compiled. And Flow is? It's a static type checker made by some guys at Facebook. They coded it in OCaml because functional programming is awesome, bro. OCaml? Functional programming? Yeah, it's what the cool kids use nowadays, bro. 2016, functional programming, high order functions, currying, pure functions. I have no idea what you just said. No one does at the beginning, bro. Look, you just need to know that functional programming is better than OOP, bro, and that's what we should be using in 2016, bro. Wait, I learned OOP in college. I thought that was good. So was Java before being bought by Oracle. I mean, OOP was good back in the days and it still has its uses today, but now everyone is realizing modifying states is equivalent to kicking babies, bro. So now everyone is moving to immutable objects, bro, and functional programming, bro. Ask Elm guys had been calling it for years, bro. And don't get me started with Elm guys, bro. But luckily in the web now we have libraries like Lambda, bro, that allows us to use functional programming in plain JavaScript, bro. Okay, are you just dropping names for the sake of it? What the hell is Ramda? No. Ramda. Like a lambda, bro. The David Chambers library? David who? David Chambers, cool guy, plays a mean coop game, one of the contributors for Ramda. You should also check Eric Meyer if you're serious about learning functional programming, bro. And Eric Meyer is functional programming guy as well. Awesome guy. He has a bunch of presentations where he trashes Agile while using this weird colored shirt. You should also check out some of the stuff from TJ, Josh Canis, Sindra Sorhas, Paul Irish, Adios Manny. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. This is all good and fine. But I think it's just so complicated and unnecessary for just fetching data and displaying it. And I'm just going to go back to the beginning of this conversation. He asked, hey, I have this new web project. It's a page that displays the latest activity from the users, so I just need to get the data from the REST endpoint and display it in some sort of filterable table and update it if anything changes in the server. And we're at functional programming, bro. Oh. I'm pretty sure I don't need to know these people or learn all these things to create a table with dynamic data. Let's get back to React. How can I fetch the data from the server with React? Well, you don't fetch the data with React. You just display the data with React, bro. Okay, what do you mean fetch the data? You use fetch to fetch the data from the server, bro. Hang on, you use fetch to fetch the data? Like, who's naming these things? I know, right? Fetch is the name of the native implementation for performing XML HTTP request against a server, bro. Okay, so it's AJAX. No. AJAX is just the use of XML HTTP requests. But sure, fetch allows you to do AJAX based in promises, which then you can resolve to avoid callback hell. Callback hell? Yeah, every time you perform an asynchronous request against the server, you need to wait for its response, bro. Which then makes you add a function within a function, which is called the callback pyramid from hell, bro. Okay. Okay, and this promise thing solves it? Yeah, by manipulating your callbacks through promises, you can write easier to understand code, bro. Mock and test them, as well as perform simultaneous requests at once and wait until all of them are loaded, bro. And that can be done with fetch. Yeah, bro, but only if your user uses an evergreen browser, bro. Otherwise, you need to include a fetch polyfill, bro, or use request, Bluebird, or Axios. God, anyone remember Axios? How many libraries do I need to know, for God's sake? How many of them are there? It's JavaScript, bro. There has to be thousands of libraries that all do the same thing. We know libraries. In fact, we have the best libraries. Our libraries are huge, and sometimes we include pictures of Guy Fieri in them. Did you just say Guy Fieri? Okay, let's get this over with. What's Bluebird, Request, and Axios? They're libraries to perform XML HTTP requests that return promises. Didn't jQuery's AJAX method start to return promises as well? We don't use the J word in 2016 anymore, bro. Okay, just use fetch. and polyfill it when it's not in a browser, or use Bluebird, Request, or Axios instead. Then manage the promise with await within an async function, and boom, you have proper control flow. This is the third time you mention await, but I have no idea what it is. Await allows you to block an asynchronous call, allowing you to have better control on when the data is being fetched and overall increasing code readability. It's awesome. You just need to make sure you add the stage 3 preset in Babel, or use syntax async functions and transform async to generator plugin. This is insane. No, insane is the fact that you need to precompile TypeScript code and then transpile it with Babel to use await. Wait, it's not included in TypeScript? It does in the next version, but as of version 1.7, it only targets ES6. So if you want to use await in the browser, you first need to compile your TypeScript code targeting ES6 and then babble that up to target ES5. At this point, I don't know what to say. Look, it's easy, okay? Code everything in TypeScript, all modules that use fetch, compile them to ES6, which is really JavaScript version 6, transpile them with Babel on a stage 3 preset, and load them with System.js. If you don't have fetch, polyfill it, or use Bluebird, Request, or Axios, and handle all your promises with await. We have very different definitions of easy. So with that ritual, I finally fetched the data, and now I can display it with React, right? Is your application going to handle any state changes, bro? I don't think so. I just need to display the data. Thank God. Otherwise, I would have to explain Flux to you and implementations like Flummox, Alt, Fluxible. Although, to be honest, you should be using Redux. Okay, I'm just going to fly over the names. Again, I just need to display data. Oh, if you're just displaying the data, you didn't need React to begin with. You would have been fine with a templating engine. Are you kidding me? Do you think this is funny? Is that how you treat your loved ones? I was just explaining what you could use. Stop. Just stop. I mean, even if it's just using templating engine, I would still use TypeScript and System.js and Babel if I were you. I need to display data on a page, not perform Sub-Zero's original MK fatality. Just tell me what templating engine to use and I'll take it from there. There's a lot, bro. Which one are you familiar with, bro? I can't remember the name. It was a long time ago. JTemplates, JQuote, Pure, doesn't ring a bell. Any others? Transparency, JS Render, Markup.js, Knockout.js. That one had two-way binding. Another one, Plate.js, jQuery, Temple, Handlebars. Some people still use it. Maybe. Are there similar ones to that? Mustache, Underscore. I think even Lodash has one, to be honest, but those are kind of 2014. Maybe it was newer. Jade? Dust? Nope. Dot? EJS? Nope. Nunchucks? ECT? Nope. No one likes CoffeeScript syntax anyway. Jade? Nope. You already said Jade. I meant Pug. I meant Jade. I mean, Jade is now Pug. No, I can't remember. Which one do you use? Probably just ES6 native template strings. Let me guess. That requires ES6. Correct. Which, depending on the browser, needs Babel. Correct. Which, if I want to include without adding the entire core library, I need to load it as a module from npm. Correct. Which requires Browserify or Webpack, or most likely that other thing called System.js. Correct. Which, unless it's Webpack, it should be managed by a task runner. Correct. But since I should be using functional programming and type languages, I first need to precompile TypeScript or add this flow thingy. Correct. And then send that to Babel if I want to use await. Correct. So I can then use fetch, promises, and control flow and all that magic. Don't forget to polyfill fetch if it's not supported. Safari still can't handle it, bro. I think we're done here. Actually, I think I'm done. I'm done with the web. I'm done with JavaScript altogether. That's fine. In a few years, we're all going to be coding in Elm or WebAssembly. I'm just going to move back to the back end. I can't handle these changes in versions and additions and compilers and transpilers. The JavaScript community is insane if it thinks anyone can keep up with this. I hear you. You should try the Python community then. Why? Ever heard of Python 3, bro? That is a banger conversation from 2016. This thing was written in 2016, October 3rd, 2016, and it is still holds true today as it ever has. And they didn't even touch Tailwind. Are you really going to do vanilla CSS? You got to Tailwind it, bro. Okay, what's required for me to do Tailwind? Well, you need a precompiler. Okay, what's the precompiler? Well, whatever Tailwind includes as part of compiling your CSS. Okay, and so then what do I do? Well, then what you do is you write a bunch of classes and inlined into your class attribute in your HTML elements. Okay, I would have to do that anyway. What's the benefit here? Okay, well then what you have to do is you have to get Tailwind to read through all of your HTML elements and extract the classes that it's going to use. Okay, why would I do that? Because if you don't do that, then you might inadvertently include the entire Tailwind library, or in some cases, none of it, and then nothing will render. Okay, but wait, don't I have to add in classes into my style attribute on my HTML elements, whether I'm doing vanilla CSS or not? Yeah, but here's the benefit. When you use Tailwind and you pre-compile all the Tailwind attributes that you're using, it's going to generate a new CSS for you so that it contains only the attributes you want, and it will also uniformly allow you to use classes that are indicative of the thing you're using. So it's a very verbose way to style your HTML elements. Okay, but can't I also just write those uniform things myself? I can use IDs, which are technically supposed to be only used once per page, or I can use classes and mash the classes together so that I can create, a convention that I can repeatedly use. Why couldn't I just write my own utility library and create custom portions of my CSS to deal with custom things? Because think about the maintainability. Why would you do that when you can just have Tailwind precompile an entire framework for you and then generate the CSS file that contains only the things you need? Okay, and I have to do that every time I make a change? Yeah. Okay, and where do I store the CSS files? Oh, the same place that you store the vanilla CSS files that you're going to create anyways. Okay, so I can create vanilla CSS files, but I have to forego that in favor of using a compilation build toolchain as part of Tailwind. Yeah, that's right. Okay, now what if I want to use another framework with it? Oh, well, then things get a little bit more messy, because now what you have to do is you have to consider how you build Tailwind in addition with the other framework that you're using. So let's say it's React. Now what you have to do is you have to bundle in a compilation step for your Tailwind output along with your React output. I'm out.